So I've got my standards figured out. I know what my assessments are going to be, and now I'm trying to move backwards and figure out like, okay, what kind of practice? You can kind of tell I've been teaching all day long and I've been talking because I'm not making the best sense, but I feel like you understand what I'm saying, so I'm just gonna keep on going. Welcome back to the Caffeinated Classroom. If this is your first time here, my name is Marie. I'm a high school English teacher in San Diego, California, and this week's classroom vlog isn't quite a classroom vlog. I am actually going to do a little plan with me session as I sit down right now this afternoon to outline and kind of calendar out my Romeo and Juliet unit that I'm going to be doing at the end of this year with my 9th grade students. So I teach 10th grade and 9th grade right now, and I've already got a good idea of what I'm going to be doing with my 10th grade students. We're going to be looking at Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Romeo and Juliet with my 9th graders, I have some ideas. I know what standards I want to hit, and so I just wanted to walk you through how I'm going to outline this and kind of figure out what's happening week to week, and then from there how I'm going to break that down day to day. Yeah, let's jump into it. Okay, so the very first thing that I do whenever I plan anything, regardless of grade, of subject, of what I, like anything, the very first thing that I need to do is figure out exactly which standards I'm going to be addressing, because that will guide the whole rest of everything that I am doing here. And when I look at standards, I'm talking about what skills I'm going to be addressing. So I'm going to keep referring back to my notes sheet here, and you can see I have like a lot of notes going on down here at the bottom because that's where I've started my work. And then you can kind of see this is going to be a 4-week unit because I did take a look at my calendar, and I know that I have 4 weeks between when I'll be finishing up what I'm doing right now with my students and the week of finals. I'll have a 4-week block in the middle, and that's exactly perfect to get done the things that I want to get done. So yeah, I don't have like the exact standards written down right here, but I do know that I have like 4 that I really want to focus on, and these standards are partially building upon skills that we've already worked on and mastered during the course of this class, and then just really honing in on a few things that we've sort of touched upon, but I just want to make sure are really explicitly taught and practiced. So the 4 things that I'm looking at are that we are writing arguments, looking at written arguments, and I have some things to practice that. We are going to be looking at the writing process again as a whole, and that's something that's just been happening all year long. We're gonna be looking at getting evidence from both literary and nonfiction, or like fiction and nonfiction sources in a single written argument. And then also looking at figuring out the meaning of words from context and from phrases, and the rest of the standard is like talking about how like an author's craft contributes to meaning. And so those are the 4 like basics. Now, mind you, I'm gonna hit lots of different standards during this unit, but these are the 4 that I want to see mastery of. So when I'm thinking of my assessments, which is like the next thing that I'm looking at, I'm going to look for assessments that really show me that students have mastered these skills. What am I going to be looking for when it comes to a writing argument? Well, I'm going to ask them to write an argumentative essay, and to combine the use of evidence that is from fiction and from nonfiction being used for one single argument. Their argumentative essay is going to be using nonfiction sources and Romeo and Juliet, and coming up with a claim and backing it up with both evidence from the play and from a nonfiction source, like supplemental source, to back it up. So you can kind of see how this is all going together. Another thing that I'm going to have them do to show me that they understand how words can be put together, and like that whole meaning of words standard is, I'm gonna have my students do a scene translation. It's basically gonna be a smaller, close reading of a scene and then translating that into, I haven't decided yet if it's going to be into like our modern dialect, if it's going to be into a different social and historical context dialect, or that sort of thing. You can kind of tell I've been teaching all day long and I've been talking because I'm not making the best sense, but I feel like you understand what I'm saying, so I'm just gonna keep on going. So I've got my standards figured out. I know what my assessments are going to be, and now I'm trying to move backwards and figure out like, okay, what kind of practice and what sorts of assignments do I need to create, and activities that need to go into making sure that my students will be able to have success in their assessments. How am I going to practice these skills, and like what sorts of smaller things are they going to be able to do to build up to a big assessment? Those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, like you have seen this before. I really use this notebook to actually plan my classes, and I'm getting towards the end of it. Here we go. So Some of the things for practice that I have down are they're going to be writing original sonnets, which then means if I keep going backwards, in order to write an original sonnet, you're going to need to be able to read and analyze and annotate and just like break down. So analyze, I hear myself. Another thing that we're going to do is work on our persuasive skills. So we'll talk about the methods of appeal, which I have not introduced to them yet. That's normally something we get into in the 10th grade. So I think it's good to have a little taste of it in the 9th grade since I'm going to be teaching them argument here. We'll talk about ethos, pathos, and logos. And I think what I want to have them do is a practice for both using Shakespeare's language and understanding how these like meanings can come together, and with appeal and persuasion is do some sort of a thing where we are writing persuasive couplets and maybe quartets, right? So see what we can do playing with iambic pentameter, they will have already written a sonnet by then. So I think that could be a cool practice sort of a thing. And that is all leading up to a scene translation and to an argumentative essay where they're going to be using Shakespeare's work as evidence in the essay. So you see how this is all like, I try to be extremely mindful. This is something I'm in my 12th year teaching. I'm trying to stay always mindful. Every single thing that I'm doing in my class, what is the purpose? What am I doing? Is it building community? Is it getting towards this standard? Is it getting towards another sort of a skill which will help them in this way? If I'm not doing something that is building human connection or somehow preparing them for the skills that I'm trying to give them in this class, then what I'm doing is probably a waste of time. Ooh, I said it. So persuasive couplets and quartets. We're gonna do a mock trial where I think we're gonna put, I don't know if we'll put the nurse on trial or if we'll put the friar on trial, but that's once again diving into the characters, getting into the world, getting into the language, and really being able to understand what's happening in the play so that we can then put one of these characters on trial and see who is culpable in the deaths of Romeo and Juliet, because you can't try them post-mortem, you know? So that will be another thing that we do to practice persuasion and practice using evidence to back something up. I'm trying to think, what else do I want to do? So you can see this is like kind of where I stopped working and I just wanted to start talking to you guys, to the camera. I guess now it's time for me to keep going backwards. I'm like, okay, if I want them to be successful in writing sonnets, what do my students need to know in order to be successful in writing sonnets? Well, I always need to have some sort of an introduction to Shakespeare. And because for many of my students, this is going to be their first actual I have to take these off. They're so loud, sorry. I move around so much, and when I'm wearing my keys, it's just like so loud. That's nice, isn't it? If they're going to be writing their own original sonnet, what are they going to need to know? They're going to need to know what is a sonnet. They're going to need to know a little bit about Shakespeare because of the way that he wrote his sonnets, and the meaning behind them will make more sense if they have a little insight into what his life looked like. And in order to understand what the man's life looked like, you have to understand the greater social and historical context of Elizabethan England. So it's like all these little layers to the onion that I'm starting to peel away. So I'm thinking on my very first day, I am loving introducing things with stations. And I think I might make my stations less, I might change them up because my students have been doing stations with me all year long at the beginnings of units, because I think it's a great way to introduce something and give them little snippets without me just teaching at them like all day long for multiple days at a time, and they can kind of guide their own learning. I think I might do, rather than stations where they rotate from thing to thing and it's static who they're with and who they're around, I might give them very specific guidelines and very specific goals to hit, and just make it be kind of an open house where they need to get all of these things done. This is also testing their own self-regulation skills, right? And I'm going to prep them with all of this. It's just something I've been like mulling over for the last couple of days, is not doing regular rotating stations, but more of a mingling, almost like a cocktail party. And I like the idea of giving them a little bit of free reign as to how and when they get different activities taken care of. So I'm going to start here. Now we are at the point. Where I start filling in my calendar. I have 4 major standards. I know how I want to assess those standards specifically. I can start moving backwards and figuring out how to practice that, and now I can start filling in my calendar. Sometimes when I'm planning like this, I'll start with the end. Like I know down here, actually I will do this. I know down here week 4 is going to be our writing week. I haven't quite decided if it's going to be a full 5-paragraph or just a 4-paragraph essay. I don't know. They're 9th grade, so I don't deviate too much from the pretty standard structure of writing. I want them to have a really good foundation before I move on and start throwing other things at them. So before that, I'm going to need to go over a good legitimate writer's workshop style lesson. I'll put WW on an argumentative essay so that they have a good mentor text to come from. I'll show you guys what I'm writing in a second. Essay, mentor text, and then I will give them their prompt so we can start unpacking the prompt together. I'm going backwards. The day before that, we're going to need to be going over like an article. I have some things in mind, an article. And then the day before that, I think I might go over a TED Talk with them. And these will all be supplementary texts that they can then use as their backup for support. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. Oh, these will be their supplementary texts that they'll be using as the nonfiction support to go along with Romeo and Juliet. So here's just kind of an idea of what I'm talking about here. I've got moving backwards from that Friday where they're writing in class and it's actually due. The day before we're outlining and they're talking to me. Every single student talks to me about their claim. And then I keep going backwards and talking about like just writer's workshop, using a mentor text of an argumentative essay and how argument is built. And then these will be days where we're going over some sort of supplemental text for whatever the big topic of this paper is to help them like back up whatever their claim is going to be. Kind of vague right now, but that's okay because I'm just moving backwards to figure out what I need to be able to like get them towards. I don't need my prompt yet as long as I know what skill I'm going towards. I know that the topic is going to be something having to do with Romeo and Juliet. It's probably going to be about like the teenage brain and decision-making factors and that sort of thing. We'll see. So other things that I want to be doing are a mock trial, and I want to be doing, oh, that's what it was. Scene translations. That's my other big assessment. So I think since that's the other big assessment, I'm gonna put that just like the week before. I know that I want to be doing a mock trial somewhere in here, so I even think that maybe a mock trial would be great before a scene translation because of all the close reading that will have to happen to get ready for a mock trial, to put like the nurse or the friar or whoever on trial, will be good preparation for translating a scene. I'm going to keep putting things into these last 2.5 weeks, and then I will show you what I have come up with, and you can just kind of see like, this is how my thought process goes. Okay, my friends. So I have gone through, you can see, this is what I was showing you earlier with my standards, my assessments, starting to figure out some major assignments for practice for those assessments. And then now I started at the end and I've worked my way backwards. So you can kind of just see where week 1, we're finishing off on this first day, something that we're doing before. I'm gonna do like an open house sort of a thing with stations, with a different sort of timing. I think I might try some Google Expedition things and take a little virtual field trip to Elizabethan England if I can find something that works. We're going to talk about Shakespeare's biography and do some stuff there. And then we're going to start talking about sonnets. We'll work on the Romeo and Juliet prologue and start workshopping some original sonnets. So already in here, I'm setting the scene, I'm filling in background information, and I'm going to start really getting into the inner workings of iambic pentameter, of all of that good stuff. Over here, we're going to do a little sonnet gallery walk. Once they have their original sonnets, we're going to make character maps and do some little introduction of the like major topics that we'll be talking about with some philosophical chairs. Tuesday, we'll work on Acts 1 and 2. I think I want to do something with Shakespeare, with their wedding, with Romeo and Juliet's wedding. I don't know, and they're going to have a quiz on like sonnets and the biography of Shakespeare and all that stuff so they don't lose that knowledge. And there's something to study later on for the final if I have a quiz here, which is nice. Acts 3 and 4, Act 5, finishing out the week, doing some sort of something, diving into those parts of the play and getting into some character analysis and sort of fun stuff in here. I love this kind of stuff. And then moving on to the next week, this actually brings us up to Memorial Day. So we're going to look here at methods of appeal, do some persuasive couplets. We might do quartets. Couplets might be kind of cool. I don't really know what that looks like yet, but there's my idea. We're going to start talking about a mock trial and prepping. We'll actually put some mock trials up on their feet, and then we're going to start translating scenes to a different social and historical context to really dive into how is that meaning created with structure and like with form and function, and yeah. And then getting into the last week here, we will go through a TED Talk that talks about the adolescent brain, an article that talks about decision-making faculties, and then get into an essay and outlining and workshopping claims, and then writing in class, and then the essay is due. And I have addressed the standards I want to address, and then some, and I really like the way that this looks. One thing that I have to be mindful of always, always, always is building in extra time. So where it looks like I have 90-minute periods, right? And I see my students every single day for 90 minutes a day. And it looks like okay, you're only going to look at Act 5 on that Friday, I guarantee you things are gonna bleed into each other, things are gonna run over, we're gonna have an assembly that I just realized I didn't put in here, so which means we're gonna have a different bell schedule. So I just kind of keep these things in mind, and it's not super specific yet, it doesn't need to be, but I feel better right now knowing that this is at least outlined and I know where I'm going, and I know that the skills I'm gonna be assessing for their final will be things that I have built in room for mastery and practice of mastery. Yeah, so I hope that this is helpful. I know this is a longer video of me just talking and only about one thing. It's not a typical classroom vlog that I'm doing, but I feel like these sorts of think aloud videos, they help me immensely, like in a selfish way. I now have this outlined, and that I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have just been looking at lit circle books because that's what I like am really into right now. But Shakespeare, I have a master's degree in theater arts with a specialization in Shakespeare. So like, this is my jam, and I'm excited to start kind of reinventing what I do with a new meaning. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope maybe it's giving you some ideas. If you want to actually see all of this in action, subscribe to my channel. You will see some weekly vlogs of things that are going on in the classroom. I also, I will get better again about going on my Instagram stories every day and just kind of like giving a rundown of what was going on in the room. It just gets so crazy that sometimes I realize it's like 9 something at night and I'm laying in bed and I'm reading and I go, oh, I didn't go on Instagram at all. Anyways, but thank you again for stopping by, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a good one.